In the heart of Africa, where the sun's golden rays danced through the leaves of ancient baobab trees, there existed a village called Nyambani. Nyambani was a vibrant community, full of laughter, song, and dance. But what set it apart from other villages was not its music or its bustling markets, but rather, a man named Adisa, renowned far and wide as the man who never lied. Adisa was an unassuming man, humble in his demeanor and simple in his dress. He lived in a modest hut at the edge of the village, surrounded by the serenity of nature. His reputation for honesty had spread across the land, earning him the respect and admiration of all who knew him. From the smallest child to the eldest elder, everyone believed in Adisa's unwavering commitment to the truth. One day, news of Adisa's honesty reached the ears of the king of the land, King Abasi. King Abasi was a ruler known for his cunning and wit, but he also had a suspicious nature. He found it hard to believe that any man could be so honest and decided to put Adisa to the test. The king sent his most trusted messenger to summon Adisa to the royal palace. When Adisa arrived at the palace, he was greeted by the king's advisors, who were curious to see this man of legendary honesty. Adisa was brought before the king, who sat on a magnificent throne adorned with gold and precious gems. The king's eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Adisa," the king began, his voice echoing through the grand hall, "I have heard tales of your honesty. They say you have never told a lie in your life. Is this true?" Adisa nodded respectfully. "Yes, your majesty, it is true. I have never lied." The king leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "I find that hard to believe. Everyone lies at some point, even if only to protect themselves or others. I shall put you to the test. If you can prove to me that you never lie, you shall be rewarded handsomely. But if I find you have lied, the consequences will be severe." Adisa remained calm, his expression serene. "I accept your challenge, your majesty." The king smirked and called for his advisors. "Let us begin the test. We shall start with a simple question." He turned to Adisa and asked, "What is the greatest treasure in the world?" Adisa thought for a moment and then replied, "The greatest treasure in the world is a pure heart." The king raised an eyebrow. "A pure heart? Explain yourself." Adisa smiled gently. "A pure heart is free from deceit, malice, and envy. It is filled with love, kindness, and honesty. Such a heart is a treasure because it brings peace and joy to the one who possesses it and to those around them." The king pondered Adisa's words and then nodded. "A fair answer. But let us see how you fare with a more difficult question." He leaned back and asked, "If you were to find a pot of gold buried in the forest, what would you do with it?" Adisa's eyes twinkled with sincerity. "If I were to find a pot of gold, I would inform the village elders and seek their counsel on how best to use it for the benefit of the community. Wealth should be used to uplift others, not just oneself." The king's expression softened slightly, but he was not yet convinced. "Very well, Adisa. Now, for a question that requires quick thinking. If a lion were to enter this hall right now, what would you do?" Without hesitation, Adisa replied, "If a lion were to enter this hall, I would stand my ground and try to calm it. Running or showing fear would only provoke it. I would speak to it gently and hope to pacify it until it could be safely removed." The king and his advisors were impressed by Adisa's composure and quick thinking. However, the king had one final test in mind. He called for a young boy to be brought before them. The boy, no older than 10, stood nervously before the king. "Adisa," the king said, "this boy has been accused of stealing bread from the royal kitchen. The punishment for theft is severe. If you can determine whether he is guilty or innocent without using any tricks or deceit, I will believe in your honesty." Adisa looked at the boy with kind eyes. He knelt down to the boy's level and asked gently, "Did you take the bread, my child?" The boy trembled and shook his head. "No, sir. I did not take the bread. Adisa nodded and stood up. He turned to the king and said, "The boy is telling the truth. He did not steal the bread." The king's eyes narrowed. "And how can you be so sure?" Adisa smiled. "Because I trust in the purity of a child's heart. Children are innocent by nature, and I can see the honesty in his eyes." The king was silent for a moment, then he sighed and stood up. "Adisa, you have proven yourself to be a man of true honesty and integrity. You have passed my tests, and I believe in your unwavering commitment to the truth." The hall erupted in applause, and Adisa was rewarded with gold, land, and the title of the king's most trusted advisor. But Adisa remained humble and used his newfound wealth to help the people of Nyambani, ensuring that the village prospered. From that day on, the legend of Adisa, the man who never lied, spread even further. People came from distant lands to seek his counsel, and his wisdom and honesty became a guiding light for all who heard his tale. And so, the story of Adisa, the man who never lied, became a timeless folktale, reminding everyone that honesty, integrity, and a pure heart are the greatest treasures one can possess.